ask the question at some point in life, why is this happening to me? And in her book, Betrayal, Trust and Forgiveness, the psychologist Beth Hedva explains how we can use trying circumstances as positive experiences, that you can learn something and you can actually achieve some personal growth. Oh, good. So I'm so happy to have you here, Beth.
Thank you. It's great to be here.
So the thing that I was interested in was that betrayal happens to everybody in a variety of forms, and everybody reacts differently.
Well, yes and no. The experience of betrayal is universal. There's not a human being who hasn't experienced it. But there are some traditional betrayal reactions, and we can begin to watch for those. Instead of just acting out of our hurt, we can begin to look within and start responding differently.
Okay, when you're 5 and someone says we're going to a birthday party and then we can't go to a birthday party, that is a form of betrayal.
That's
it starts like that, doesn't
right.
it?
That's right.
And then it escalates.
Yes.
And if you have a fit when you're 5 because you don't get to go to the party,
yes,
is that when you have to learn how to work it then?
Well, what usually happens is we start getting conditioned socially so that we know when it's okay and not okay, so that by the time we're adults, we're really full-blown into our conditioned reaction. And so the first thing we feel is righteous resentment. But instead of expressing it like a 5-year-old, I want to go and this isn't fair, we hold it in. We fester and fume on it. And instead of discussing it, we begin to gather data about, well, how is this person hurting me and how have they wronged me? And we begin to do the next betrayal reaction, which I call projection of the shadow. We start seeing only negative traits in our betrayer. So like in a love relationship where once they were ideal, now they're a vicious villain, they never understood, they never listened. You begin to start seeing the negative. And then the third betrayal reaction, we generalize that negative to all others deemed to be just like our betrayer. And this is true whether it's personal or political, by the way.
Yes.
So, for example, personally, if you've suffered a divorce or lost a partnership, all men, all women are untrustworthy. In the political scene, as what happened recently with September 11th, we demonize the terrorists and extend that to all people who we think are just like the terrorists, so all Islamic population or all Muslims, wherever they may be, all Arabs. And what we need to recognize is that knee-jerk reaction doesn't really allow us to get to the deeper truth.
Now, this is human nature in your books. This isn't just us guys in North America.
No, 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 no. This is universal.
Yeah. If it is so systemic, if we are so much this, if this is our very nature to react this way, it's going to be, you have your work cut out for you, madam, to try and make people kinder, gentler, and even to themselves.
Well, yes. Well, you see, this is what I found when I was looking at the core betrayals of my clients and the people that I knew. I realized that there was something so profound here that I began researching the cross-cultural stories, traditional spiritual traditions from around the world, the traditional approaches to healing, and I discovered that actually the experience of betrayal frequently is the first step to a spiritual opening, a deep soul searching that actually can bring us to a deeper sense of ourselves.
But don't you need a sort of shock to come to that?
Well, the betrayal is the shock, actually. And it's nothing less than a shock whenever it happens.
Right. And then there's a kind of vendetta, either a large vendetta or a small vendetta. I will get them.
But if we can begin to recognize that our betrayal reactions are exactly that, reactions. Because at the same time, what we notice is in that shock, there's frequently an expansion of awareness. Like we saw this really worldwide in reactions to September 11th. We were hearing about firemen who were already talking about forgiveness. We were already hearing about how we come together to support each other in healing. There's always like a glimpse of another possibility.
Well, it's because your senses are so heightened either by fear, could be one, or it's such a raw sensation, the sensation of betrayal.
Well, I think
pretty basic.
It's very basic, it's very raw, and I think what happens in that initial shock is that our conditioning falls away, and suddenly we have a glimpse of another possibility. And it may last for an hour or a week or a month, but then all of our conditioning comes back
again, yes.
And that's where the work is.
Right. Are forms of betrayal ever useful?
forms of betrayal.
I mean, I don't know what I mean by that, but I mean, is betrayal sometimes useful? I mean, it's going to happen, so it has to be useful?
Well, you know how...
Sometimes it's pretty wicked.
It is. Well, betrayal on a personal level always feels totally disastrous, debilitating, shattering. However, there's something within the human nature, within our human spirit, that can take an experience like that. And this is where the healing requires something really profound from us. We can create value, we can create meaning, we rediscover what's important to me, and we make a commitment to that. In a way, I see that betrayal experiences require us to return to ourselves.
So it's a necessary social event in one's life. It has to happen. I suppose if you are not faced with this, let's say up till the time let's say you're exceedingly beautiful, very clever, enormously talented, and have lots of money.
And you've still had betrayals.
Or maybe even not. Maybe you have just been told how beautiful, how clever, how talented, and so on you are. And then all of a sudden, something can happen. And I don't know if you're prepared for it, if you haven't had the 5-year-old can't go to the party episode.
Yes. But all of those are betrayals. We can be killed a number of different ways, and I mean soul death, killed symbolically. So the person who looks like they have it all feel very pressured to be that for the outside audience. But the vacuous, empty experience inside of, well, who am I and don't I count, becomes the trauma and the drama.
Life is so complicated. It is. I mean, how did you come to understanding this?
Well, what I've come to understand is that there's a larger force within our nature, within the human psyche, for lack of a better way of understanding it, whatever it is that is growing and evolving and awakening us to our own humanity. Betrayal is almost like the contrast to that experience of humanity. And after we've experienced betrayal and we find a way to heal it within ourselves, a remarkable thing happens. We open in compassion.
We get better, nicer.
We do. It's phenomenal. And all of the spiritual traditions talk about this.
Yes. Well, it's too bad it's not part of the nature to know this without having to be trained.
Trained.
Trained. Okay, I'll be right back with Beth Hedva. This is Beth Hedva. She teaches people how to work through betrayal and learn to trust again. I don't want to make a joke about this, but sometimes you must have funny things happen. No, never? It's never funny in your practice?
Actually, I always start out when I'm teaching and I ask, what's your favorite betrayal? Which really kind of twists people around.
Yes.
But there's one experience that really gets us in our gut, and it has so much energy that that's the one that can really transform us.
Is it very often being dumped from a job?
It could be a job, it could be any number of experiences.
Thing.
Yeah, divorce, infidelity, child abuse, sexual abuse, family violence.
But when you start teaching, that's not, I bet family violence, sexual abuse, child abuse, they're not the first things that come spurting out.
No, not necessarily, because sometimes we have a hard time discussing those within a group setting.
Yeah, I would think so.
Yes, but let's say, for example, with a job or any betrayal, we feel betrayed on so many levels. And in order to respond to it, we have to reconnect with something deeper. So I like to look at it in terms of the ancient traditions that talk about us living in a physical world, an emotional world, a mental world, and a spiritual world. So for jobs, we have to do concrete physical planning, budgeting, that kind of stuff. But we also need to get down to not just the objective truth, but the personal truth. What did I like about that job? What didn't I like? Was it really fulfilling me or not fulfilling me? What do I really desire now that I have this new opportunity that I wasn't planning on?
Yes, this new freedom.
That's right.
To not spend any money or go anywhere.
That's right.
And the humiliation in the workplace, all that fun stuff.
Well, that's right. And so that it actually does. It brings up all of those feelings of insecurity, feelings of worth.
What did I do?
Yeah, blaming the self.
Yeah.
And I've come to understand that the experience of betrayal, if we look at it like an initiatory rite of passage, one of the phases we go through are called rites of purification, where all of the glunk comes up, all of the
glunk?
Yeah, you know, the stuff that we don't want to look at. So our fears, our anxieties, our insecurities, our hurt, our anger, and it's as though that comes to the surface to be recognized and released, so that we can be empowered to go forward in a new way.
Right, so you have to learn how to get rid of it. That's the trick. You'll experience it, you'll feel like punching the guy in the nose, and you make it go away.
Yeah, but it's not about doing that.
It isn't?
Yeah. Not that I've discovered, anyway. That's called retribution.
Yeah, yeah. Sometimes I think that's often a reaction when you're betrayed. I'll get them.
That's exactly the reaction. That's that first betrayal reaction, the righteousness.
Yeah, it feels good.
It does.
And then it feels crummy.
It feels crummy because then they punch us back and we're off and running, and now we have, war.
Have you, tell me a betrayal of yours.
Oh, I've had so many good betrayals. Let's see. A really good one that I'm sure a lot of people can relate to. In my first marriage, I had been teaching about betrayal and trust for a couple years, and I was just beginning to lecture on it publicly. And about that time, my marriage partner approached me and said, "I don't love you anymore. I've met someone else. And by the way, how would you feel if I was with them?" Well, that was a good betrayal.
Just great. That'd be just lovely. So what did you do?
Yeah, well, we cried a lot. We mourned a lot. For us, it became an opportunity to really talk about what was and wasn't working in our marriage, what I wanted, what he wanted, all of that kind of stuff.
He's a gone guy now, is he?
Well, we actually continued our marriage for about 4 years after that. That was not the end of our marriage.
You're a glutton for punishment.
Well, that wasn't the reason that...
I'm not completely prying into your life, but you know what I mean. But you are remarried to a Canadian now.
I am.
See, you've got your reward.
It's true.
You get to live in Calgary.
Well, that's right. And if it hadn't been for my first marriage partner, I don't know if I would have delved so deeply into this issue. So I'm very grateful to him.
Aw, what does he do?
Seriously. He is trained as a chiropractor, and he works in a hospital in Oakland,
you don't live in Calgary. Why do I think you live in Calgary?
I live in Calgary. Oh, my
husband now.
My husband now is a communications specialist, and he lives in Calgary.
So you're just communicating all over the place.
Oh, yes.
Okay. Let's go through a couple of specifics. If you have, in one of the categories is betrayal, is it by or of, but of the mother?
Yes, why I use the word of is because it's archetypal. And every single human being has this quest for a source of nurturance, support, love, unconditional love. And no matter how we look at it, our personal mothers fall short. Whether they fall short by,
I knew it.
It's the problem. We just never had mothers who were the goddess of the universe, no much as we wanted it. And so whether it was through weaning or through the birth of a sibling or through some kind of trauma in childhood, each child is forced to discover that that source, who we wish knew what we needed and could provide it for us, wasn't able to do it. And that
never will be able to do it completely.
Not as well as we could do it.
Yes.
Because the truth is, we each know what we need, what love is, what supports us, what doesn't support us. And so the healing of the betrayal of the mother is the reconnection with our own deeper inner knowing, our intuitive resources, trusting ourselves that deeply.
Do I have to take a break? Or have I got enough? Okay. There are levels of betrayal of, let's say, the mother. There is mundane betrayal, I would say. And then there can be profound desertion.
Yes.
Mothers that take off, mothers that perhaps are compelled to drink too much.
Or physically abused. Yeah.
That's a different way
now,
of being betrayed.
This is the thing about an archetype that's so profound. What I've discovered is that no matter what the betrayal is, we tap into an energy that is so much larger than us that it's almost irrelevant what the betraying incident was. We all feel crushed when we realize that that person who we thought was there for us ain't there for us.
Yes, but if you have, if you are, let's say, sexually abused by a parent, you might find it harder to forgive than if they took away the car keys.
Yes and no. This is what I'm saying. For some,
I know you're saying that, but
it's hard. It's cognitively hard to believe. It's not. It doesn't make rational sense. But that's because the healing is not rational. We need to tap something within us, which is using our intuition, using a broader resource than just our intellect.
Okay.
And when we do that, we connect with an expanded sense of who we are and what we really are.
I believe you. I just don't know where to look. So you can tell me when we come back after the soap selling.
Sure. Great.
trust again after being betrayed. Eventually, you might even forgive your betrayer, and this is what we're all after. This is Beth Hedva. Her book is all about this. Because if we are all betrayed, we are all betrayers, aren't we?
Well, that's right, and I think this is the thing to really recognize is when we've been betrayed by someone else, more often than not, they are already feeling betrayed. They're hurt, they're wounded, they're acting out of their own stuff. And when we, instead of just acting out of our hurt again, stop for a moment, take a moment to come home to ourselves, to go, wow, what hurt me so much? What is this really about for me? When did I stop listening to myself? What is it that I need to do to come back on track with my values and what's most important to me? Then we can turn the energy around. Instead of betraying ourselves again, which then betrays other people. Exactly.
Do you do Tai Chi?
No.
Because you're just very...
Yoga.
Yeah, you're doing something. I figured you were... I found, personally, betrayal, not an unkindness, but with parental death.
Now that is really harsh, and that brings up for many people an experience of a betrayal by God. How could God let something like this
Well, I was,
happen?
first of all, upset with them.
Yes.
Not
Yeah,
that.
yeah, but taking it to that level.
Yeah, I figured this, how does this happen? How you know, that means that you're no longer a child, of course.
That's right.
And that's, you feel betrayed.
Absolutely.
And deserted and so on.
That's right, and we may try to generalize it. Maybe if they died because in a hospital because of illness, so then it's the hospitals and the doctors, we displace it. But the bottom line, and this is because of my background in parapsychology, for 20 years I've had the gift of having contact with people who have already died.
And what are they saying?
Well, it's no more than anything, it's a presence and a feeling of the love and connection that's there, and a desire to reconnect with people who maybe are still physically present, to bring a greater sense of peace and closure. So what happens is, as I mentioned before, the key is opening those broader resources in our nature, our intuition. We all have a way of knowing what's true and what's not true. For some of us, our hairs stand on end or on the back of our necks when we hear truth, or our guts will get tight or we'll feel totally relaxed, that clairsentient knowing of truth. Or through dreams, we'll have contact with a parent who has died. There are many ways of making contact through spiritual and psychic resource.
If you say, though, that we all know what is true and what is generous and what is right,
Yes.
Why could there be so many Nazis? You know, how does this happen? Not just them, but in other places, or great clots of people
Yes.
that have a like-minded, beyond viciousness.
More narrow vision.
More narrow?
Yeah.
Yes. And keep it up.
Yeah.
And never find that.
Part of that is the dilemma that we as human beings face right now. We're caught between our animal nature, which is a fight, flight, freeze, faint, fear reaction, and a greater part of our nature, which for lack of better language would be our humanity, our human spirit. We're in the process of evolving in relationship to that. But the first reaction is the animal reaction. And I really see that this is the time in history that we're beginning to awaken to how much more we are, so that we can start choosing other ways of being with each other than just the same old animal reaction. So
I'm
that's
still
how I
not
understand
going to
it.
forgive them. All right. The body is the next to go.
Oh, definitely. Whether it's through accident, through aging.
Yeah.
Yeah, so the body can definitely be a betrayal.
It is a deceptive beast.
Yes, but it...
But it's the only beast we know.
It is. It's the one we got.
Yeah.
And I've come to see that every betrayal experience, whether it's mother, father, lover, job, body, it brings us a universal teaching and a particular teaching. So, for example, on a universal level, our bodies teach us that there are greater forces at work than our personal
our little
will.
kidneys, too.
That's
Yes.
right.
Well, see ya. Either here or later. Thank you. Beth Hedva is the author of Betrayal, Trust, and Forgiveness. Really great book. Thanks so much.
Thank
That's
you.
really
This is
fun.
great.
True love going ongoing throughout the rest of the year. That's what this book focuses on. It's called Betrayal, Trust, and Forgiveness. And author Beth Hedva joins us now to discuss it. Thank you very much, Doctor, for joining us this morning.
It's a pleasure to be here. Thank you.
You know, we use the term true love, and as an expert in love and all things related, tell me, what is the difference between true love and romantic love, for example?
Yes, well, true love is actually the experience of extending ourselves altruistically towards another. We feel ourselves drawn to someone and want the best for them. And
that's true love.
That's true love.
And yet that doesn't sound necessarily sustainable, and you'd like to think that true love would last a lifetime.
Well, actually, true love begins where romantic love ends.
Ah.
And romantic love is that experience of what we need from someone in order to feel loved. And interestingly enough, there are 6 different styles of romantic love, and there are 6 different expressions of true love cross-culturally, and romantic love is not even one of them.
That's right. Interesting. Tell me then some of the different stages or styles of love.
Okay, so let's start with true love, because what's very important for those, well, actually, I guess we will start with romantic love.
Okay.
Romantic love, the first style is like the Hollywood love. It's physical. That romantic style, love is desire. And then...
Is it important?
Well, it's not about important or not important. It's just what some people associate with romance. And romance is different for different people. That's really important to remember. So in this style, love is desire, and the experience of sex is the pleasure that comes from sharing sensually with another. Another style of romantic love might be called possessive love. And then...
That doesn't sound good, possessive love, is it?
Oh, it's not about good or bad. It's just another style of romance. That's the style where love is trust.
But do you acknowledge that there are certain kinds of love that allow couples to be more balanced?
Well, that has to do with true love.
Oh, okay.
Okay.
Gotta get all this love stuff straight.
Yes,
okay, well, how do you find that?
Well, true love is that experience of acknowledging the deeper purpose of what is our relationship about. Is it about growth and learning? Is it about a sense of sharing a passion for life or humanity? Is it about that experience of loyalty that comes with friendship? Or perhaps it's that quality of true love in other form is between parent and child, nurturing.
Now, certainly on a day like this, people think about love, they talk about love, they buy things for their lover.
Yes.
But is there some way, in your opinion, for couples who feel they've lost whatever that spark is to regenerate it within the relationship?
Yes, and I think this is when we get back to romantic love and recognize that we have different styles of love. And if we can recognize what our partner's style of love is and try to meet them in the place that they feel loved, it's a gift that we can give to them.
So give me a concrete example of what, you know, one person's style may mean based on their mate.
Another. Yes, all right, I'll give you the example of my husband and myself. I'm the typical physical love, the romantic love where it's hearts and flowers and the sensual contact is what I consider love. And so for me, an ideal romantic gift would be, you know, a nice bubble bath by candlelight or soft music playing in the background. Our first Valentine's Day, I got him silk shorts, for example. Now, my husband's style of love is more a logical love, a practical love. And that kind of love is based on what you do is how you show love. And the experience of sex is actually about performance. On our first Valentine's Day, when I got him the silk shorts, he bought me a toaster. Because after all...
And you married him anyway? I thought there was this rule, don't ever buy something that plugs in on Valentine's Day for your lover.
But you see, you know, he's now learned that for me, I need a different style of love for romance. And for him, I've learned, you know, CD burners and a nice shaver and something really practical just works for him.
So it's okay then. You don't have to sort of fall into the stereotypes. You can accept the other person's love style, as you put it.
Right, that's exactly right. And now we're getting closer to the true love, which is about accepting ourselves and each other for who we are. Instead of looking to our partner to make us whole, we recognize that we are each whole, and how can we share the whole being, the whole person that we are with each other. That's where true love really begins.
Well, it's very interesting, and this book is a good beginning also for people looking for true love. Thank you so much for joining us this morning.
It's been a pleasure, thank you.
And happy Valentine's Day.
Yes,
I hope you don't get another toaster. We're going to be back on Canada AM. Stay with us.
We're back on Michael Corrin Live. It is Valentine's Day. That's why we have these nice little mugs here with hearts on them and that sort of thing. And it's a bit sad in a way that there are some couples out there who say there'll be one day when we actually do show real emotion and love and romance, meaning what? The rest of the day is you simply ignore one another. Divorce, we know the figures, and some people become optimistic and say, well, it's declining a bit. Well, it is, but I think it's a bit of a blip. The trends are not particularly comforting. But what is romance and relationship and feelings aren't enough? I think C.S. Lewis, that great man, said you can't rely on feelings. Feelings change. You're not going to wake up every day and say, my gosh, I'm so incredibly in love. You might do that, it's wonderful. But there are times when, you have to put the garbage out, you have to get the kids to school or whatever, and there are other things on your mind. So feelings, transient, transitory, you move on to something perhaps deeper, commitment, and so on. Lines are open. Dr. Beth Hedva, psychologist and author. Now, psychology, as I mentioned earlier, does a great deal of good. I think it can do some harm as well. I like the idea of applied common sense. But what these two were saying, go on, say it was all rubbish. No. Do you agree with them?
Actually, there's a lot that I agree with, and I'd like to expand on a few of the ideas. I think what's really difficult for couples when they get into arguments is they're uncomfortable with their own feelings of anger, hurt, distrust and suspicion, and so it's hard for them to tolerate upset in their partner because it brings up all of their own unresolved feelings. Yeah. And so one of the biggest challenges in working with our partner as well as working with ourselves is how to make peace with ourselves, that it's okay to be vulnerable, it's okay to feel hurt, it's okay to feel angry, it's okay to have joy and excitement, all of the feelings that we have. But the part of being able to allow ourselves to understand where our partner is coming from, not as a reaction to us, exactly what you were saying, but because they're having an experience that is meaningful to them. So it's not about whether their experience is right or wrong. It's about this is their experience. And can I allow myself to be present and available to them, to understand from their point of view, get inside of their logic, and understand how they came to the conclusions that they came to and the feelings that they came to, and open in empathy without having to fall into saying I agree or disagree and get into a debate about whether it's right or wrong, but to really open our hearts and compassion to each other. That to me is the biggest challenge in relationship. And when we talk about experiences of the hurt and pain and wound, it creates an experience of separation. But the real question is, how do we respond during that separation? If we take the time to reconnect with ourselves, then we have an opportunity to come back whole and available to our partner instead of fragmented, disjointed, upset, feeling wounded. So that separation, as you were saying, is not such a bad thing.
I think what you actually do is you make a cup of tea and you put the soccer on TV, and then you sit on the sofa until she comes in and shouts at you. That is a very good way of
getting attention.
It's all very... See, this is very good. It sounds like Mr. Spark. It's very good, the cold logic of the thing, but when two people are arguing, they're arguing, and the very last thing they're going to do is say, I must feel your pain.
No, actually, this is the situation is we actually need to learn to train ourselves to be able to have what I call dual consciousness. One foot in my experience, but then also a foot in an open mind, open heart, and open spirit, where I can allow myself to be available to someone else.
Again, I don't know what that means.
Well, what that means...
Okay, situation.
No,
all right, let's take my wife and myself.
I doubt that. I suspect if you've been in your relationship for as long as you have, I'm sure that you have allowed yourself to connect with your partner.
Oh, gosh, I feel what she feels, I think, a lot of the time. But when we argue, we don't argue very often, but we argue every now and again. And at that point, it seems to be, the worst thing in the world. It doesn't last very long, and it's all over. I was raised in a family. My parents seemed to argue most of the time, actually. Right. And they're lovely, wonderful people. There was never anything abusive about it, but they would shout at one another. And, we would just say, oh, there's mum and dad, who cares?
So what you're bringing up now is our family conditioning. And many times we repeat the same kind of patterns that we learned in childhood.
Sometimes, yeah.
Well, like my parents argued, I argued. This is the way that we show connection and intimacy.
No, totally different. My parents argued all the time.
Oh.
You should see where I was raised. I wasn't I wasn't raised in California. So they argued a great deal, but it was almost comforting. No, we very rarely argue, but when we do argue, I can't sit back and think, you know, my spirit must be open here. I just think, why can't you see my point of view? She thinks, why can't he see my point of view? Right. We'll argue for a while, and then we'll probably just fall about laughing, and that's the end of it. And it doesn't seem to be very damaging, really.
Well, for some couples, actually, that kind of exchange is part of what, it's kind of like a fiery relationship. And it allows for, you know, a release of tension and a feeling of connection. There's been some research, though, that shows that men and women respond differently in that way. And that men tend to, when they get angry, the hormonal reaction to the anger, it stays in the bloodstream a lot longer. And so that experience of being able to cool down and then be able to have a conversation is not always as easy once a man gets to a state of intense anger.
Oh, it's never intense anger. Intense anger is something a little different.
But for some people, it builds to that place, and it gets to be, you know, threatening or frightening, all kinds of different experiences. So we need to find ways that we can recognize and be aware for ourselves. I always have thought of relationships as the fast track to enlightenment, actually, as this fast track to becoming aware of ourselves and another person, and the journey of growth, spiritual growth. And there's nobody like our partner to get under our skin and to help us wake up to the places where we're most vulnerable. Now, if we can develop the capacity to observe ourselves, in many of the ancient spiritual traditions, that's called witness consciousness.
Such as which traditions?
Buddhist tradition is one of the traditions, Hindu tradition, as well as actually in the Kabbalah and the Jewish tradition.
Yeah, I don't want to talk about...
I'm just saying...
Deeply flawed traditions, I would argue, profoundly flawed, and very fashionable these days.
Well, I would like to say that...
Very much a product of the West Coast of the United States.
No, I would say actually... I would actually say that the Buddhist tradition, there are more Buddhists in the world than any other culture or religion right now.
What Buddhism are you talking about? Are you talking about ancient pure Buddhism?
No, I'm talking about...
Or Reform Buddhism, which is what most North Americans practice.
You know, I'd rather talk about relationship.
Okay, all right.
I think that's what we're here for.
But a lot of people throw in traditions, and they always throw in sort of Eastern, they throw a bit of New Age in, and I know a little about this. And I think, well, hold on a minute, what are you really talking about there? Because I'm not sure. And I do know the Kabbalah relatively well. And hold on a minute, what are you really talking about there? Because I'm not sure. And I do know the Kabbalah relatively well, and it's fun and all that, but I'm not sure if it really does offer very many answers.
Actually, you know, I'd like to again stay with what, if we look cross-culturally, what all of the religions talk about universally. And what they all speak to is this experience of union and oneness. And what happens when we bump up against the differences with our partner, there's a breach in that sense of partnership and union and oneness. And so the challenge...
Oneness with whom?
Pardon me?
Oneness with whom?
Well, ideally, according to all of the spiritual traditions, ultimately it's one with God, one with our divine nature, and then ultimately when we connect with that...
We better not talk about this, but that is...
Hold on.
You don't understand Christianity if you think that's what it is.
I just need to say one more thing here.
Okay. Nor Islam.
Okay, when we achieve that, it's called mysticism.
Yeah,
and when we achieve that state, a remarkable thing happens.
Yeah.
We recognize...
You get a show on American TV.
No. We recognize, actually, in our connection with all of life, that we really are one with all. Now, what happens...
I've got to go to break here, sorry. That's part of my oneness. But the Christian and Jewish tradition, I mean, I'm sorry, I shouldn't talk about the Jewish because it's too vague, but the Muslim and Christian traditions, the idea of oneness and the divine within, it's so not that. But we have to break. We have to... How did Elvis do, by the way? Lines are there. We'll get to Bernice, Lisa, Racina, and all the rest when we come back on Michael Curran Live. See you then. We're back on Michael Curran Live. We're talking, because it's Valentine's Day, about, well, I say romance, but relationship. And relationship can be the most wonderful thing, so fulfilling. It can also be very, very difficult and hard. And I don't know, I see people out there sometimes, people I know who are married, and I ask myself, do they seem happy? And you don't always know what's going on. You think people are incredibly happy and they're not, but some people do not seem to be very happy. And, you know, especially those people who try to find things to do rather than go home. You all know people like that. I certainly do. I'll have another drink, or yeah, I'll come out. I won't go home. Well, that doesn't seem to me a desirable state of affairs. Let's get to the calls. Bernice is on line 5. Hi, Bernice.
Hi, Michael.
Hello.
How are you?
I'm well, thank you.
Good. I just phoned. It's just something that I wanted to say to the other people there, we've been married, this is our 53rd year.
Great.
And everything hasn't been a bed of roses.
Sure.
You know, and we have raised 6 kids. We lost one a few years ago.
I'm sorry.
And we've had our ups and downs.
Yeah.
But otherwise than that, my husband took sick a few years ago, and he's wheelchair bound. And, you know, everything goes by day. You live up day by day. You can't expect miracles. And I was just thinking, you know, there is people that do get along, and maybe they don't argue. Maybe they let on they don't argue and they don't fight and this and that. But I still have to see a couple that don't have their arguments.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I think it's, you know, Bernie, is there anything in particular, and it might be generational, this, I don't know, but anything in particular that you attribute the lasting nature of your relationship to? Is there anything you've tried to, any devices you've learnt over the years to really make the marriage work?
Not really. No. It's, well, my mom and dad was married 50 years.
Yeah.
And I don't know, it just seems that the two of us, like it's the old school. You made your bed, lay in it.
Absolutely. It's a very old school, actually. I would say a couple of thousand years. And but I appreciate the call very much. See, that, I suppose, is the way I was raised in a working-class home. And my parents, even if they did argue, doesn't matter. I mean, marriage was marriage, and actually they do love each other. And my dad had a stroke about 1.5 years ago, and you really see the commitment of a partner there in a similar circumstance. You know, a woman in her mid-70s who is reaching out in every way she can to love this man and understand this man. But is there a generational issue here? Are people's expectations, particularly in North America, so high now that if they're not satisfied every day, they feel the marriage is going wrong? Is that true?
I think it is true. I think the expectations for having a fulfilled relationship is much higher now than it was before. And so, given that, the reality doesn't meet the expectations. And so part of the work requires individuals to look at whether their expectations are realistic and trying to understand what they're based on. It becomes an important thing for them.
That's an interesting point, because on the one hand, I think it's probably a good thing that people do expect more. Perhaps in the past, and arguably particularly women, possibly, were told, you'll have this and that'll do. Well, maybe we can have a bit more in the modern world. But there was so much televisual culture and so on, this idea that everything is perfect and wonderful, and you have to have more and more materialism. It shouldn't happen. It's not going to happen, but people will be disappointed, won't they?
Absolutely. Absolutely.
I think there's another reason that marriages might not be lasting in the way they once did. The roles for men and women have broken down in society. Women are now more financially independent than they were 100 years ago, 50 years ago, even 20 years ago.
Sure.
And so it allows for a different kind of choice now that might not have been available in relationship 50 years ago.
Sure.
So perhaps now we need to ask a different question. If we're not together just because we need to be together to survive, then maybe there's another reason that we're together. And maybe it has to do with growing together, raising a family, sharing values, and also being able to grow ourselves into a greater sense of love, relationship, contribution to the family, to our community, to our society. I think we're needing a new definition of what the purpose of marriage may be.
Was it not always that, though? I mean, obviously that there were, without any doubt, times when women stayed in marriages that may have been abusive, certainly unhappy because of financial commitment.
Yes.
There were times when men stayed in those relationships too.
Yes,
not as much, but it still
correct.
happened. But there still were a great number, a huge number of really loving, committed, and you see this with older people today, when, as I mentioned, in my own parents' case, when one partner is ill, is terribly ill, and you see the real love and commitment of the other partner. But they were raised, I think, at a time when expectations were lower. And as I say, some expectations should have been high. You can ask for more, but it's very seldom that on television, which is a very powerful medium these days, I mean, it's so influential in our culture, even in reality shows, they're not real marriages most of the time, what it really means. You mentioned about taking a kid, time together. So when we take kids out, when we drive the kids somewhere, I see that as a fulfillment of marriage, though.
Yeah.
I mean, I find that actually very, when I'll come back or my wife will come back and we'll hug one another, there is a lovely feeling there. We have done something that you mentioned as part of the family. We're not going out to a movie together and a candlelit dinner, but goodness me, it's an indication of the love we have for the whole.
Absolutely.
Right.
So you don't actually don't just have to be together as a twosome.
No, I think it's quality family time, and you know, with my experiences now with my children, and now my other older children from a previous marriage, you know, it's what I see is that as a joint relationship that makes the party whole together. And the children right now, my two little ones, my gosh, they're my catalyst. I can't wait to see them at night. I mean, how many times when you come home at night, you know, this has got a feeling that some people probably don't have, but I have it. When I come home and I'm traveling, I come home and I pull the car in or I walk down the driveway, it's just like I can't wait because I know they're going to be running up the driveway.
I know, it's great.
And when they run up the driveway and I pick up little Carly, the first thing I think about is what my wife went through anymore. And when I pick up Kyle, how Kyle's our daddy, while you were away, I was taking care of the house. You know, I just, you know, how many, you know, you want that feeling. I mean, relationships are now, and I see Kathy smiling out the window. And that's what you really want to have in any type of marriage, I feel, and especially if you had a tragedy in your marriage, because those children can cement the whole thing. It's like puzzle glue. They cement the whole thing.
I was talking about you know, making time for each other when there was a disconnect.
No, we're not going up on you, don't worry.
No, I don't feel it. But I'm saying when there was a disconnect, and so when you're feeling disconnected and just taking it for granted that we're disconnected, then you do make that conscious decision.
Another nice one is when you come home and your 4-year-old daughter says, "Daddy, I broke your computer."
Oh,
That's also a good one. Just before we go into break, I do a radio show here, and on a Sunday night, I had the kids in on just before Christmas, and my 4-year-old calls in and says, "Hello, poo-poo bum." On that, we'll go to a break. There are only about 100,000 people listening when she said that. 416-203-0302. It's not true. Anyway, 905-332-3131. To your calls when we come back. Don't go away. We're back on Michael Curran Live. We're talking about love and romance and relationship because it is Valentine's Day. Don't worry, tomorrow, Friday, that was the week that was. There'll be lots of people shouting at one another, so no romance there. We will talk about, by the way, the medal issue, and that may dominate the entire show. We'll try to get other things in too, but certainly how the whole thing was fixed. And I don't know, maybe... Could we get President Bush to include in the axis of evil all the judges who didn't... Anyway, Lisa is on line 1. Hi, Lisa.
Hi.
Hello.
Hi. Thank you, Michael, for having me.
Pleasure.
My name is Lisa, and my husband and I have been married for the last 5.5 years now. We have 3 beautiful children, but the problem is we've been separated for the last 2 years. And I've been counseling, and I've been a psychologist because he was accusing me something is wrong with me. And I've been... in my heart, I believe I did everything I could for the sake of the children and the sake of the marriage, too. But it seems like my husband is taking advantage of me. I believe that. And he's not willing to do anything for us as a family or even for the kids. So I was wondering if the doctors would at least tell me what I should do next. I know I was really depressed today because for the last 3 years now, I haven't get anything for Mother's Day or anniversary or Valentine's Day. So today I was wondering if you can guys...
Just a couple of questions. One thing I have to make very clear is that this is only a TV show. And, you know, TV is just TV. You have to get good personal counseling and advice. And that's very, very important. I mean, maybe we can give you some directions. One thing, though, you've been apart 2 years, so the marriage was effectively 3.5 years.
Right.
And you have 3 children.
Yeah.
So you had 3 children very quickly.
I just had a daughter, I mean, maybe a month and a half ago.
Oh, so you did get back together?
In and out, yeah.
I see.
And we've been, you know, but like I said, we've been separated for the last 2 years, and I don't know what else to think.
All right, and you have custody of the 3 little ones, right?
Yeah.
Okay, and how old are they?
3.5, year and a half, and newborn.
Oh, gosh. You are on your own with 3 children of that age?
Exactly, yeah.
Whoa. Okay, you take over this, because I
would just want to ask Lisa what kind of support group she may have. Anybody helping you?
My mother-in-law comes maybe once or twice a week and just to stay with us half an hour or an hour, and that's about it.
Lisa, you said your mother-in-law.
My mother-in-law.
So your mother-in-law, your husband's mother, sees you, but can she connect with him?
To be honest with you, no. I believe if she tried, maybe she could, but I don't think she tried.
Have you asked her together to try to contact him?
Right, but she said she doesn't want anything to do with it.
I see.
So if I could interject for a moment, it's really important to recognize that there is a cycle of violence that happens in some relationships. And it sounds like you are in counseling. So one of the things that I would really recommend is that you might want to educate yourself a little bit more about the cycle of violence and how perhaps you can begin to identify some of the symptoms and signals when your husband is beginning to escalate.
Well, hold on. Did she say there was violence? I didn't hear that.
No.
Oh, I'm
No,
sorry.
no, I don't think...
Oh, I thought you said that in the separation that there was some violence going on.
No, I think she said they got together and a child. I think that's what she meant. They got together and there was a child. I don't think...
So what initiated the separation between the two of you?
My husband is constantly complaining about being tired and upset because I'm staying home and looking after the kiddies, and he's going out and, you know, he's the breadwinner, but he's completely... every single night when he comes home, he lets me down constantly and saying, like calling me names and saying I was just sitting here with my, you know, wet and doing nothing. When I come home, I don't want to hear kids crying or doing anything.
This is a part of the cycle of violence. It might not be physical abuse, but that kind of trying to control the environment and also being very critical and non-supportive is part of that
pattern. It just sounds like massive dysfunction to me. The man has given you 3 children in that period of time. He's simply not behaving in any way properly. Lisa, you have an accent. Are you from a particular community?
I'm from England. I used to live in England for the last 10 years, so...
Right, but I think before then, perhaps your accent, you don't sound like a Liverpudlian or anything. Where are you from originally?
I'm from Kenya.
From Kenya. Are you part of that community here?
To be honest with you, I don't know anything. I live in Hamilton, so I don't know anybody in Hamilton except...
What about a faith community? Are you part of any faith community?
Yeah, yeah.
And which one would that be, if you don't mind me asking?
I'm Muslim.
Muslim. Is there anyone at your mosque or anyone in your community who could sit with you and chat to you and advise you?
I tried, but the thing is, because I didn't have enough time to go out and, you know, to talk to people, and the other thing, my husband was going to the mosque every night and talking about our problems, so I was kind of embarrassed to go there.
Oh, gosh, this is... is he giving you financial support?
Yes, he does.
Okay, so you are managing financially?
Yeah.
All right. This is a very tough one. We have to give some concrete advice here.
No, I would think I'd like your approach in terms of getting that support, that having a larger support group for herself.
If the local mosque was being sort of soiled by his rumors and things. And
also perhaps speaking with the sheikh, if you have a relationship with the sheikh or someone who you feel your husband would respect, who you could maybe share your story with, and maybe he could intervene on your behalf.
Okay, I spoke with the sheikh a few times, but people are just giving up on you when you're not moving forward or backwards, because, like I said, he was going there and talking about our problems constantly.
I tell you what, Lisa, I can't guarantee this, but you're in Hamilton. I do know, I think, all of the MPPs in Hamilton relatively well. If you want to, don't give your number out on the air, but if you want to leave your phone number with us, I will try and find out, and your address, and I'll find out which riding you're in, and they may know at least a good counsellor or someone you can see, because that situation is intolerable. I mean, if you know, and it sounds like a bit of a mess. Remember that you have 3 children, and they are not a mess. I mean, that's a wonderful thing. You have life there.
Yeah.
So if you'd like to, it's entirely up to you, but if you'd like to do that, leave your phone number with our screener. I'll take it down, and we'll find out which MPP it is, and they might be able to know someone who is good, who can really sit with you and advise you, and so on. And you know, sometimes it just is that the marriage is over. And I'm not saying it is, but I mean, there are times when if there is no resolution, there's no resolution. You have a life and you have children to raise. But we can at least do that for you if you'd like. So don't hang up. Give the number if you'd like to. I do wish you well. I mean, it just sounds an absolutely bloody situation, and I do feel so sorry for you. Thank you for calling in. It can't be easy. We'll get to the rest of the calls when we come back in a couple of moments on Michael Cohen Live. See you then. We're back. Rest of the calls. Let's get to them. Rather busy. Racina on line 6. Hello, Racina.
Hello, Michael.
Hello.
Good evening. I'm finding a lot of what your guests are saying very relevant. I have been married for 18 years. I'm one of those professional women that can provide for herself. I have been in constant conflict with my husband for the last 18 years, just about. He has gone back to school the last 10 years, approximately, and I have been pretty much a single mother, working and taking care of business and taking care of my child and just trying to keep things going. I have not done a perfect job. He's constantly criticizing me for how I do things and the fact that I'm a risk taker and that I control everything, especially the finances. The finances are the biggest obstacle, it seems. Now, what I want to know is the following. We have gotten into a pattern of separating and getting back together again. And this has gone on for at least 10 times, where he leaves me because he doesn't like what I say, or he doesn't like what I'm doing, or we just get upset with one another. And we stay apart for maybe 3 months, 4 months, and then come back together again and just repeat this pattern. Right. I'm wondering what it is about me that keeps taking him back, or why it is that, in fact, we come back together.
How old is your child, Rosina?
My child is 6 years old. We had him quite late in our marriage.
Right.
And he is a joy in our lives, and we try, both of us try to be good parents, but he only sees him right now every other weekend because we are apart. And anyway, I think I've...
Hard on him, of course, the instability, you know, dad is there, dad isn't there. I mean, kids need, what they absolutely need, of course, is as much certainty as they possibly can in those years, complete confidence. But if the marriage is that rough, again, we're hearing a soundbite here. It's very hard for us, you're experts, but it's very hard to know. She needs good counseling, I suppose.
And also, I think the relationship could use the kind of training that the two of you offer. I don't know if the two of you have ever taken a couples communications course, or something that can allow the two of you perhaps to find a new way to resolve conflict. But I would certainly recommend that, and I'm sure the two of you could speak more about that.
Yes, Rosina, I think one of the things you may want to talk to your husband about is sitting down and sharing with each other what you have in common in terms of your values, what you believe in, that you can share and you can build upon, so that when you have conflicts that arise, you can go back to that shared discussion you had of what you believed in, and work through some of those things that are coming into conflict with each other.
She said for 18 years, I mean, it's been bad from the... Have you had any counseling?
I went to counseling for at least 2 or 3 years.
Yeah.
I have done a lot of reading. We both recently have looked at tapes and have tried to, learn a lot more about relationship and what works and what doesn't work. It seems that on the surface, at least, our values are common. We do agree on a lot of things, but we do get into a power struggle. Yes. And because I am a professional with a lot of my own ideas, I'm not passive. I don't like to be submissive, and I think that presents a problem to him. He would probably like nothing less or nothing more than for me to simply make meals and do as I'm told. And I'm afraid that I have a hard time with that.
Well, you can make the meals. I mean, doing what you're told is another issue. But I mean, it is meant to be you're working together. So does he bring in money to the home?
No.
Okay. Is that his decision?
School. He went back to university, right. And he's been in school for the last 8 years.
Wow.
Okay. I mean, well, he's very lucky. He should be grateful that he's able to do that. And as long as you're fine with doing that, that's terrific. I mean, there are traditional roles. He can feel emasculated, but that is his decision.
But that partially what's happening is that there's this sense of imbalance of power in the relationship. And he, I'm sure, is trying to reestablish a sense of autonomy for himself, obviously not very effectively. Couple counseling would be very helpful for the two of you. You also asked a question about why is it that you keep going back. And I think it's really important to recognize for yourself that you obviously have a very deep commitment to family, and obviously you share a child, and so the thought of what the next step for you to do is in terms of whether to stay or to go, these are really big decisions and not decisions to make lightly. So I think it's important to not condemn yourself for not having a certain answer about that.
Rosina, would your husband be willing to go for counseling?
I didn't get the count there. Ken Crispy, thank you very much. Beth Hedva, thank you very much. Louise Dorfman, thank you very much. David Rubenstein, thank you as well. Tomorrow night, normal programming. In a way, they'll be arguing. That was the way that was. Take care, God bless, goodbye. Happy Valentine's Day. See you then. Thank you very much. Thank you very much. Thank you. Sorry about that, I didn't get the count.
There might be some emotional healing involved, and actually, if you've got any concerns, rejected by a loved one, aging disease, illness, substance dependency, a job layoff, financial loss, natural man-made disasters, or discrimination and prejudice, things that could be a factor in any of your lives, there is the key to healing, and it's called Betrayal, Trust, and Forgiveness, a guide to emotional healing and self-renewal. And we're joined all the way from Calgary by the author, Dr. Beth Hedva. Thanks so much for being here.
Nice to meet you, Kathy.
This book is very much about forgiving yourself and learning from your mistakes.
That's right, and also recognizing that every experience we have is actually a part of our path in life. And how can we use these experiences to grow more into who we really are instead of becoming bitter and resentful and afraid of living life more fully?
Some of us, we've had a tragic event in our lives. We think this is just something we're supposed to get past so that we can shove it under the carpet and wait for the bright sun to come out again and everything to be wonderful. But you really think that these are experiences we should embrace and grow as a result of them.
Exactly, and frequently by putting something under the carpet or trying to stick it on the shelf in the closet, what happens is there's another part of our brain that's just suspicious and waiting for it to happen again. And if even one little thing similar to it happens, then all of those old feelings start coming up.
The psychology and self-help sections of the bookstores are some of the busiest these days. People are fascinated with psychology, and it's very much in the public mind with doctors like Dr. Phil on Oprah, who takes a really tough, hardline approach, Dr. Laura. And then there's the ideology that we were all embracing about 10 years ago, to be very compassionate. But where do you stand on that scale?
Well, actually, I understand that experiences like betrayal take us into a very deep place in our own soul. And I look at the spiritual traditions from around the world and how actually these kinds of experiences can initiate a soul searching that leads to a spiritual awakening, a personal awareness of how we need to get on track with what's most important in our lives, our values, our truth.
If you'd like to hear more from Dr. Beth Hedva, you've got book signings 2 o'clock tomorrow, Indigo at Yonge and Eglinton in Toronto, Saturday 2 o'clock at Bayview Chapters, 7:30 at Richmond Hill Indigo. 3 books to give away. All you have to do is call us. Otherwise, it's available your best bookstore. Betrayal, Trust, and Forgiveness. There's the number on screen. Thank you so much, Dr. Hedva, for joining us.
Wonderful.
And we're all out of time for a Friday.
We'll make another CH Morning Live on Monday with some art in Grimsby, The Innocence of Childhood, drawn from some very special inspiration, and a whole bunch more. Have a great weekend. We'll see you Monday morning.
See you Monday.